Humayun's tomb is the tomb of the Mughal Emperor Humayun in Delhi, India. The tomb was commissioned by Humayun's son Akbar in 1569–70 and designed by Mirak Mirza Ghiyas, a Persian architect chosen by Bega Begum. It was the first garden tomb on the Indian subcontinent, and is located in Nizamuddin East, Delhi, India, close to the Dina-panah citadel, also known as Purana Qila, that Humayun founded in 1533. It was also the first structure to use red sandstone at such a scale. The tomb was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1993, and since then has undergone extensive restoration work, which is complete. Besides the main tomb enclosure of Humayun, several smaller monuments dot the pathway leading up to it from the main entrance in the west, including one that even predates the main tomb itself by 20 years. It is the tomb complex of Isa Khan Niyazi, an Afghan noble in Shah Suri's court of the Suri dynasty, who fought against the Mughals, constructed in 1547 CE. The complex encompasses the main tomb of the Emperor Humayun, which houses the graves of Bega Begum herself, Hamida Begum, and also Dara Shikoh, great-great-grandson of Humayun and son of the later Emperor Shah Jahan, as well as numerous other subsequent Mughals, including Emperor Jahandar Shah, Farooq Shah, Rafi al-Dajjat, Rafi-ud-Daulah, Muhammad Kambaks and Alamgir II. It represented a leap in Mughal architecture, and together with its accomplished Charbagh Garden, typical of Persian gardens, but never seen before in India, it set a precedent for subsequent Mughal architecture. It is seen as a clear departure from the fairly modest mausoleum of his father, the first Mughal emperor, Babur, called Bagi Babur in Kabul, though the latter was the first emperor to start the tradition of being buried in a paradise garden, modelled on Gur-Mir, the tomb of his ancestor and Asia's conqueror Timur in Samarkand. It created a precedent for future Mughal architecture of royal mausolea, which reached its zenith with the Taj Mahal at Agra. The site was chosen on the banks of Yamuna River due to its proximity to Nizamuddin Dargah, the mausoleum of the celebrated Sufi saint of Delhi, Nizamuddin Aulia, who was much revered by the rulers of Delhi, and whose residence, Chilla Nizamuddin Aulia, lies just northeast of the tomb. In later Mughal history, the last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, took refuge here during the Indian Rebellion of 1857, along with 3 princes, and was captured by Captain Hodson before being exiled to Rangoon. At the time of the slave dynasty, this land was under the Kilakeri fort, which was capital of Sultan Keg Ubud, son of Naziruddin. The tombs of Batashiwala complex lie in the buffer zone of the World Heritage Site of the Humayun Tomb Complex. The two complexes are separated by a small road but enclosed within their own separate compound walls. History. After his death on 20 January 1556, Humayun's body was first buried in his palace in Purana Qila at Delhi. Thereafter it was taken to Sirhind, in Punjab by Kanya Beg, because it was feared that Hindu King Hamu, who had defeated Mughal forces in Agra and Delhi in October 1556 and captured Purana Qila, will damage the tomb. In 1558, it was seen by his son, the then Mughal Emperor Akbar. Akbar subsequently visited the tomb when it was about to be completed in 1571. The tomb of Humayun was built by the orders of Akbar, Humayun's first wife and chief consort, and begun in 1565, 9 years after his death, and completed in 1572 AD at a cost of 1.5 million rupees at the time. Agniv Majumdar Doraka, one of Humayun's wives, was also very helpful. The cost for building the mausoleum was paid entirely by Empress Bega Begum. When Humayun had died in 1556, Bega Begum was aggrieved over her husband's death, as she dedicated her life thenceforth to a sole purpose: the construction of the most magnificent mausoleum in the empire, out of sight near the Yamuna River in Delhi, for the memorial of the late emperor. According to Ain Akbari, a 16th-century detailed document written during the reign of Akbar, Haji Begum supervised the construction of the tomb after returning from Mecca and undertaking the Hajj pilgrimage. Humayun to Abd al-Qadir Badi, Sunni, one of the few contemporary historians to mention its construction. The architect of the tomb was the Persian architect Mirak Mirza Ghiyas, who was brought from Herat, and had previously designed several buildings in Herat, Bukhara, and others elsewhere in India. Ghiyas, to whom the mausoleum's exquisite design is attributed, was chosen to be the architect by Empress Bega Begum. Unfortunately, before the structure's completion, he died, and so his son Saeed Muhammad ibn Mirak Mirza completed his father's design in 1571. An English merchant, William Finch, who visited the tomb in 1611, describes the rich interior furnishing of the central chamber. He mentioned the presence of rich carpets, and a shamiana, a small tent above the cenotaph, which was covered with a pure white sheet and with copies of the Quran in front, along with his sword, turban and shoes. The fortunes of the once famous Charbagh Gardens, which spread over 13 hectares surrounding the monument, changed repeatedly over the years after its construction. The capital had already shifted to Agra in 1556, and the decline of the Mughals accelerated the decay of the monument and its features, as the expensive upkeep of the garden proved impossible. By the early 18th century, the once lush gardens were replaced by vegetable garden of people who had settled within the walled area. However, the capture of the last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, during the Indian Rebellion of 1857, together with the premises, and his subsequent sentencing to exile, along with execution of his 3 sons, meant that the monument's worst days lay ahead, as the British took over Delhi completely. In 1860, the Mughal design of the garden was replanted to a more English garden style, with circular beds replacing the 4 central water pools on the axial pathways and trees profusely planted in flower beds. This fault was corrected in early 20th century, when on Viceroy Lord Curzon's orders the original garden were restored in a major restoration project between 1903 to 1909, which also included lining the plaster channels with sandstone. In 1915, planting scheme added emphasis to the central and diagonal axis by lining it with trees, though some trees were also planted on the platform originally reserved for tents. The 1882, the official curator of ancient monument in India, published his first report, which mentioned that the main garden was let out to various cultivators. Amongst them till late were the royal descendants, who grew cabbage and tobacco in it. During the partition of India, in August 1947, the Purana Qila, together with Humayun's tomb, became major refugee camps for Muslims migrating to the newly founded Pakistan, and was later managed by the government of India. These camps stayed open for about 5 years, and caused considerable damage not only to the extensive gardens, but also to the water channels and the principal structures. Eventually, to avoid vandalism, the cenotaphs within the mausoleum were encased in brick. In the coming years, the Archaeological Survey of India took on responsibility for the preservation of heritage monuments in India, and gradually the building and its gardens were restored. Until 1985, 4 unsuccessful attempts were made to reinstate the original water features. An important phase in the restoration of the complex started around 1993, when the monument was declared a World Heritage Site. This brought new interest to its restoration, and a detailed research and excavation process began under the aegis of the Aga Khan Trust and the ASI, culminating in 2003, when much of the complex and gardens were finally restored, with its historic fountains running once again after several centuries of disuse. The restoration has been a continuous process ever since, with subsequent phases addressing various aspects and monuments of the complex. Architecture. Turkish and Mughal rule in the Indian subcontinent also introduced Central Asian and Persian styles of Islamic architecture in the region, and by the late 12th century early monuments in this style were appearing in and around Delhi, the capital of Delhi Sultanate, starting with the Turkish slave dynasty which built the Qutb Minar and its adjacent Quwwat al-Islam Mosque. North India was successive ruled foreign dynasties in the coming centuries, giving rise to the Indo-Islamic architecture, while the prevailing style of architecture was tribute, employing pillars, beams and lintels. This brought in the arcuate style of construction, with its arches and beams, which flourished under Mughal patronage and by incorporating elements of Indian architecture, especially Rajasthani architecture including decorative corbel brackets, balconies, pendentive decorations and indeed kiosks or chutras, to develop a distinct Mughal architecture style, which was to become a lasting legacy of the nearly 400 years of the Mughal rule. The combination of red sandstone and white marble was previously seen in Delhi Sultanate period tombs and mosques, most distinctively in the highly decorative Ali Darwaza in the Qutb complex, Merali, built in 1311 AD, under the Khilji dynasty. The higher rubble-built enclosure is entered through 2 lofty double-storied gateways on the west and south, 16 meters high, with rooms on either side of the passage and a small courtyards on the upper floors. 6-sided stars that adorn the main gateway on the west are also seen on the E1 of the main tomb structure, though it has been used as ornamental cosmic symbol. The mosque, usually present alongside royal tombs, like the Taj, is conspicuously missing from the enclosure, which has only one other structure, the tomb of Emperor's favorite Babur, now commonly known as Nikah Gumbad. The tomb, built of rubble masonry and red sandstone, uses white marble as a cladding material and also for the flooring, lattice screens, door frames, eaves and for the main dome. It stands on a vaulted terrace 8 meter high and spread over 12,000 square meters. It is essentially square in design, though chamfered on the edges to appear octagonal, to prepare ground for the design of the interior structure. The plinth, made with rubble core, has 56 cells all around, and houses over 100 gravestones. Plus, the entire base structure is on a raised platform, a few steps high. Inspired by Persian architecture, the tomb reaches a height of 47 meters and is 91 meters wide, and was the first Indian building to use the Persian double dome on a high neck drum, and measures 42.5 meters, and is topped by 6 meters high brass finial ending in a crescent, common in Timurid tombs. The double or double-layered dome has its outer layer which supports the white marble exterior, while the inner part gives shape to the cavernous interior volume. As a contrast to the pure white exterior dome, rest of the building is made up of red sandstone, with white and black marble and yellow sandstone detailing, to relieve the monotony. The symmetrical and simple design on the exterior is in sharp contrast with the complex interior floor plan of inner chambers, which is a square 9-fold plan, where 8 two-storied vaulted chambers radiate from the central, double-height giant domed chamber. It can be entered through an imposing entrance E1 on the south, which is slightly recessed, while other sides are covered with intricate jarless stone lattice work. Underneath this white dome in a domed chamber lies the central octagonal sepulchre, the burial chamber containing a single cenotaph, that of the second Mughal Emperor Humayun, aligned on the north-south axis, as per Islamic tradition, wherein the head is placed to the north, while the face is turned sideways towards Mecca. A real burial chamber of the emperor, however, lies further away in an underground chamber, exactly beneath the upper cenotaph, accessible through a separate passage outside the main structure, which remains mostly closed to visiting public. This burial technique, along with pietra dura, a marble and even stone inlay ornamentation in numerous geometrical and arabesque patterns, seen all around the facade, is an important legacy of the Indo-Islamic architecture, and flourished in many later mausolea of the Mughal Empire, like the Taj Mahal, where again we find twin cenotaphs and exquisite pietra dura craftsmanship. The main chamber also carries the symbolic element, a mihrab design over the central marble lattice ejali, facing Mecca in the west. Here, instead of the traditional Surah 24 and Nur of Quran which is inscribed on the mihrabs, this one is just an outline allowing light to enter directly into the chamber from Qibla of the direction of Mecca, thus elevating the status of the emperor above his rivals and closer to divinity. This chamber with high ceiling is then encompassed by four main octagonal chambers on 2 floors, set at the diagonals with arched lobbies leading to them, also connecting them. Plus there are 4 auxiliary chambers in between, suggesting that the tomb was built as a dynastic mausoleum. Collectively, the concept of 8 side chambers not only offers passage for circumambulation of the main cenotaph, a practice common in Sufism and also visible in many Mughal imperial mausoleums, it also reflects the concept of paradise in Islamic cosmology. Each of the main chambers has in turn 8 more, smaller chambers radiating from them, and thus the symmetrical ground plan reveals itself to contain 124 vaulted chambers in all. Many smaller chambers, too, contain cenotaphs of other members of the Mughal royal family and nobility, all within main walls of the tomb. Prominent among them cenotaphs of Hamida Begum herself are there alongside Dara Shikoh. In all there are over 100 graves within the entire complex, including many on the first-level terrace, earning it the name Dormitory of the Mughals. Since the graves are not inscribed, their identification remains uncertain. The building was first to use its unique combination of red sandstone and white marble, and includes several elements of Indian architectural, like the small canopies or chhatras surrounding the central dome, popular in Rajasthani architecture and which were originally covered with blue tiles. Charbagh Garden. While the main tomb took over 8 years to build, it was also placed in center of a 30-acre Charbagh Garden, a Persian-style garden with quadrilateral layout, and was the first of its kind in the South Asia region in such a scale. The highly geometrical and enclosed Paradise Garden is divided into 4 squares by paved walkways and 2 bisecting central water channels, reflecting the 4 rivers that flow in Jannat, the Islamic concept of paradise. Each of the 4 squares is further divided into smaller squares with pathways, creating into 36 squares in all, a design typical of later Mughal gardens. The central water channels appear to be disappearing beneath the tomb structure and reappearing on the other side in a straight line, suggesting the Quranic verse, which talks of rivers flowing beneath the Garden of Paradise. The entire tomb and the garden is enclosed within high rubble walls on 3 sides. The 4th side was meant to be the river Yamuna, which has since shifted course away from the structure. The central walkways terminate at two gates, a main one in the southern wall, and a smaller one in the western wall. It has two double-story entrances, the west gate which is used now, while the south gate, which was used during Mughal era, now remains closed. Aligned at the center on the eastern wall lies a baradari, literally a pavilion with 12 doors, which is a building, a room with 12 doors designed to allow the free draft of air through it. Finally, on the northern wall lies a hammam, a bath chamber. Other monuments: Tomb Mosque of Isa Khan. Several monuments dot the pathway leading up to the tomb enclosure from the main entrance in the west. Prominent among them is one that predates the main tomb itself by 20 years. Constructed in 1547 CE, it is the tomb complex of Isa Khan Niyazi, an Afghan noble in Sher Shah Suri's court of the Suri dynasty, who fought against the Mughals. The octagonal tomb is positioned within an octagonal garden, which was built during his own lifetime and the reign of Islam Shah Suri, son of Sher Shah. It later served as a burial place for the entire family of Isa Khan. On the western side of the tomb lies a 3-bay-wide mosque in red sandstone. The octagonal tomb bears a striking resemblance to other tombs of the Sur dynasty monuments in the Lodi Gardens in Delhi, and demonstrates a marked progression in the development of the exquisite architectural style of the main tomb. Some of the architectural details present here were seen later in the main Humayun's tomb, though on a much grander scale, such as the tomb being placed in a walled garden enclosure. Bu Halima's tomb and garden. When entering the complex from the west, visitors first enter a garden complex known as Bu Halima's garden, though little is known about her, and since the tomb of the raised platform where it once stood is not at the center, it appears to be a later addition. Afsarwala Tomb and Mosque. Standing southwest end of the complex lies the Afsarwala tomb belonging to a nobleman in Akbar's court. One of the marble graves inside the tomb is dated 1566 to 67 CE. The mosque itself can be dated to the same period judging from its siting, standing as it does adjacent to the tomb, rather than away from it. Araba Sarai, literally meaning the sarai for the horses of Gari. The structure stands adjacent to the Afsarwala Mosque and was built by Bega Begum around 1560 to 1561 CE, ostensibly built for the craftsmen who came for the construction work. It could accommodate 300 Arabas. Nila Gumbad. Standing outside the boundary of the complex is the tomb known as Nila Burj or Blue Dome, so called because it carries striking blue glazed tiles. It was built by Abdul Rahim Khan, the first Khanate, son of Behram Khan, also a courtier in Mughal Emperor Akbar's court, for his servant Mian Fahim. Fahim, who not only grew up with his son, but later also died alongside one of Rahim's own sons, Feroz Khan, while fighting against the rebellion of Mughal General Matabat Khan in 1625–26, during the reign of Jahangir. This structure is known for its unique architecture, as it is octagonal on the outside while square within. Its ceiling is decorated with painted and incised plaster. It has a high neck dome and shows a conspicuous absence of a double dome feature common to tombs of the period. Chilla Nizamuddin Aulia, believed to be the residence of patron saint of Delhi, Nizamuddin Aulia, is located just outside the main complex, near the northeastern corner of the principal mausoleum, and is an example of Tughlaq period architecture. Yet further away from the tomb complex lie Mughal period monuments: Bada Bait Shawala Mahal, the tomb of Muzaffar Hussain Mirza, the grand-nephew of Humayun, built 1603–4 on platform with 5 arches on each side, has its interior walls decorated with incised and painted plaster. The Chot Bait Shawala Mahal, once an arcaded octagonal building with a domed ceiling and stone jalas, Both these monuments now lie inside a commercial area facing the complex's parking lot. Another period structure is Barapila, a bridge with 12 piers and 11 arch openings, built in 1621 by Mahbanu Agha, the chief eunuch of Jahangir's court. Babur's tomb, towards the southeast corner, within the Charbagh Garden, lies a tomb known as Nikah Gumbad, or Babur's tomb, belonging to royal Babur. It is datable to 1590 to 91 CE, through an inscription found inside. Its proximity to the main tomb and the fact that it is the only other structure within the main tomb complex suggests its importance. However, there are no inscriptions suggesting as to who is interred therein. The name Babur's tomb is the local name of the structure, hence still in use. The tomb stands on a raised platform, reached by 7 steps from the south. It has a square plan and consists of a single compartment covered with a double dome. Inside lie 2 graves, each inscribed with verses from the Quran. Also, one of the graves is inscribed with the figure 999, which may stand for the Hijra year 1590 to 91. However, in an 1820 watercolor now at British Library, the Persian caption beneath the structure reads, Maqbara-i Kokar-i, Tomb of Kakar, and Kokar-i-Kakar in Persian stand for foster brother Murat, though the identity of the person remains unknown, and it might be referring to another nearby monument in the Shosath Kumba complex, the tomb of Aga Khan, the foster brother of Humayun, which lies in Nizamuddin West area and not to the east of the Humayun's tomb. Restoration. Before the restoration work was undertaken, vandalism and illegal encroachments were rampant at the site of the tomb, presenting a serious danger to the preservation of this invaluable treasure. At the main entrance of Humayun's tomb, dingy stalls had been put up under a very corrupt system of municipal patronage known as Tebazari, and all sorts of heavy vehicles were allowed to be parked illegally in these open spaces. On the Nila Gumbad side was a huge citadel of India's vote bank politics. Thousands of slum dwellers were kept by an influential section of the political leadership to serve as bonded voters during elections. The environment of the Dargah of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia had also been ruthlessly degraded, and the holy tank had become a messy cesspool. Restoration work by the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, in collaboration with Archaeological Survey of India, began around 1999 after research work, which started in 1997 and was completed in March 2003. Around 12 hectares of lawns were replanted, and over 2,500 trees and plants, including mango, lemon, neem, hibiscus and jasmine cuttings, were planted in the gardens. Installation of a new water circulation system for the walkway channels was also undertaken, to ensure that water flowed naturally through the channels and pools on the 12-hectare site without the aid of hydraulic systems. The water channels were relayed to an exacting grade of 1 centimeter every 40 meters. This eventually enabled water to flow through the watercourses in the gardens and dormant fountains to start functioning once again. Other tasks in this mammoth restoration project included setting up a rainwater harvesting system using 128 groundwater recharge pits, and desilting and revitalizing old wells that were discovered during the restoration work. This was first a privately funded collaborative effort under the aegis of the National Cultural Fund by the ASI. Funding included a sum of $650,000 from the Aga Khan Trust for Culture of His Highness the Aga Khan, with help from the Oberoi Hotels Group. In addition, AKTC is conducting a more significant restoration at Babur's tomb, the resting place of Humayun's father in Kabul. After the restoration work, The conditions in and around this complex underwent a sea change. All the stalls and other intrusions were removed and the monuments and green spaces restored. Elegant gardens now surround the monuments, adding to the dignity and grace. When illuminated at night, the monument looks truly magnificent. In 2009, as a part of the ongoing restoration work, the ASINKTC, after months of manual work using hand tools, removed from the roof a thick layer of cement concrete that had been exerting pressure of about 1,102 tons on the structure. The cement concrete was originally laid in the 1920s to prevent water seepage, and led to a blockage in water passages. Subsequently, each time there was leakage, a fresh layer of cement was added, leading to an accumulated thickness of about 40 centimeters. This has now been replaced with a traditional lime-based roof layer. In the next phase, similar treatment was given to the tomb's first chabutra, which was originally paved with large blocks of quartzite stone, some weighing over 1,000 kilograms. In the 1940s, an uneven settlement in the lower plinth had been corrected by covering it with a layer of concrete, adding to the disfigurement of the original Mughal flooring, which matched with that at the west gate.